Okay, great. Thanks for getting back so quickly. This next section is on the future of work, and I'm really excited about the two guest speakers we have to join us for this, because they are experts in their field. And the first, a long-time Woodstock boy, actually, yeah? Will Hutton. You will probably know, writes a regular column in The Observer, but you may not know he co-chairs the Purposeful company, and he's president-designate of the Academy of Social Sciences.
I've been doing it for 4 years.
He's a long-time president of the Academy of Social Sciences, and formerly was principal at Hartford College. He is a well-known author, speaker, and we're really delighted to have you here, Will. Laura Gilbert is head of AI for government programs at the Ellison Institute of Technology. But you've now gone on, and you're on secondment with the Tony Blair Institute.
Well, the program leadership has moved to the Tony Blair Institute, but it's still jointly delivered across the two institutes. Yeah.
So this is really looking at, in depth, at AI in terms of government and in terms of how organizations will use AI as well as AI policy?
Well, I build. So it's an incubator. We have engineers and we build AI solutions to try and make governments make better decisions.
Okay.
So yeah, saying the policy we get involved in when someone asks our opinion.
So some of the key areas we're going to look at in terms of the way work will develop. Will, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I am a Woodstock kid. Actually, no, a kid. I've been coming to Blenheim Park and walking around it all my life. And behind you, you see behind us, you see Duke of Marlborough, John Churchill, kind of on his horse. And I was thinking, as I met the MP, Callum, who spoke to you this breakfast, that actually Battle of Blenheim and the wars of Spanish succession may seem far away from what we're talking about. But actually, it was an astonishing thing that happened. And I was saying to Dominic, the runs Blenheim, that actually more should be thought, more should be celebrated about this. In this respect, the War of the Spanish Succession and the Battle of Blenheim is all about martial valor. But actually, here's the thing: Louis XIV couldn't get over the fact that 20 million French and in alliance with the Spanish were being beaten by the tiny England. I mean, remember, the Act of Union didn't happen until 1707. Battle of Blenheim was 1704. How could it be that this little country could put these well-resourced armies into the field that knocked the French for 6 and set up, actually, industrialization of the British Empire? And it was financial innovation. Financial innovation. Because in 1694, we established the Bank of England, which issued bonds. And we were able to put people in the field with the financial innovation of selling bonds to the British middle class. And we also invented the joint stock company. And the reason why he could make that extraordinary march from Holland to intercept the French armies at the Blenheim, marching his men 30, 40 miles a day, was how well-resourced they were. And that was because of a fantastic supply chain supplied by joint stock companies. There's a whole story: technological innovation, financial innovation, and actually military innovation go hand in hand. And actually what you witness here, and all this martial valor, is tribute to that. And actually, spooling forward to 2025, we're watching something parallel happening in Britain. You probably don't know this, but Oxfordshire and Cambridgeshire and London are the centre of what kind of the innovation community, the venture capital community, call New Palo Alto. There are this district, if you take a little bit north to Manchester and west to Bristol, and then take kind of in commuting time, kind of the Eurostar to Paris, Amsterdam, Eindhoven. This area, this small geographical area, has the third highest unicorn count in the world. That is, companies that were founded kind of 30 years ago or earlier or later, whose latest round of financing has valued them at £1 billion. And it has the highest number of startups in the world founded by alumni from universities. This area, and Oxfordshire and Oxford, is the centre of extraordinary kind of global phenomena of technology driving a kind of new growth. And one of the things that goes hand in hand in that is actually major transmutations in the financial system. And we haven't reinvented the Bank of England, and we haven't reinvented the joint stock company, but we have reinvented a particular way of finance engaging with startups and scale-ups, the venture capital industry. And Britain boasts the third largest venture capital industry in the world, interacting with these startups and scale-ups. It's a phenomenal thing. There's all kinds of problems that I want to discuss briefly, and I want to kind of introduce you, kind of link it up to the kind of world of work, which is the subject of the next kind of 30, 40 minutes. But just before I go on, I would love to know kind of who we're talking to, who I'm talking to. Are we talking to, I mean, are there any, I mean, what industries have you come from? Who here is broadly from a company or a sector, life sciences, kind of AI, data, that in some way is actually tech-driven? Can just get a sense of it. We've got 1, 2, 3 more. Anyone who's a founder, I would imagine that most founders are actually good on you. Service sector, I would imagine quite a number of you are kind of lawyers, accountants. Can we get that sense of who's in the audience? Academia, universities, yeah. So we're getting a kind of sense of actually who's in the audience. And that's actually kind of what you'd kind of expect. Now, one of the, what I'm engaged in at the Purposeful company is a project we call the Growth Trilogy. And in January, we published the first of a series of reports. The second one comes out on Friday, in which we talked about purpose, innovation, and growth. The second one talks about venture capital as a 21st century growth catalyst. And what we try to do in this is we try to talk to this extraordinary phenomena that in the last kind of 15 years, private markets in Britain have grown not 5 times, not 10 times, but 20 times. 20 times. Companies are kind of staying private for longer, growing bigger for longer before they exit either by acquisition or by floating on the stock market. Now, there's all kinds of issues about that. We can talk about that too. But one of the things that, I mean, the good news is the kind of phenomenal entrepreneurialism and the phenomenal amount of startups and the phenomenal amount of money that's being raised at seed corn level. It's really a phenomenon. It matches anything that was happening in the kind of 10, 15 years up before the Wars of the Spanish Succession. But here's the bad news, is that these companies are not getting the money they want as they scale. And we identified 2,600 companies in the last 10 years that actually, because they couldn't get monies in the second, third, and fourth round of financing, they looked to American venture capital houses. They then became the majority owner, and ultimately those companies have left the UK. Indeed, Callum was telling me about one in Hamborough, which is just about kind of 3 or 4 miles away. Fantastic little company that actually can't get kind of the next round of financing, and it will almost certainly go to the United States. Here, just miles away, this drama is acting itself out even as we speak. And one of the things that I'm insistent on is we've got to put that right. And I'm going to come up with a few asks at the end of my talk in a few minutes' time, so don't worry, Laura, I'm not going to hog this thing.
You go right ahead.
The other thing I find very inspiring, and thank you for the introduction, I wrote a book 30 years ago called The State We're In, and I advocated stakeholder capitalism and mission-driven capitalism and purpose-driven capitalism. And and move away from financial engineering and financial extraction and shareholder value dominant kind of framing of semi-companies to a kind of new framing. That was what I was trying to argue. I haven't got very far with that argument, actually. And you can imagine my kind of pleasure and slight amazement as I began to kind of dig into what was happening in Britain's private markets and these founders who are setting up these kind of new companies. These men and women are really purposeful companies. They're mission-oriented. They have a technology or an idea they think will change the world, and they're going to go hell for leather for doing just that. And they're inspiring people. And so I've met kind of in Britain's private markets where you least expect it. You think this is where capitalism is red in tooth and claw. Not so. These people, they understand kind of either intrinsically or extrinsically, they kind of know it in their kind of DNA, that if they themselves are going to work this kind of incredible hours during a week, 100-hour weeks and longer, they're going to need the people who work for them to be as committed to this mission as they are. And so what you find is you find kind of capitalism and mission-driven founders finding their way to the kinds of processes that I was advocating when I wrote The State We're In. I mean, it was the second best-selling economics book of the 20th century. A lot of people thought it liked it, but there was no kind of follow-through. But actually there is follow-through. It's happening in front of our eyes. And some of the best venture capitalists are the committed owners of these mission-driven companies that I also wanted to see when I wrote The State We're In, anxious about footloose shareholders who don't engage with the companies they own. And so there's a wonderful phenomenon taking place in our country, but it needs to be nurtured and curated. It needs to be looked after. It needs to be understood. It needs to be celebrated. And actually, one of the things I was keen to kind of come and say a few words is kind of I wanted to get that message kind of over big time, and particularly in Oxfordshire, which actually is one of the areas of the country where this is really happening. And the precondition for kind of getting things to happen, institutions to get built, is a kind of common understanding of what the period is we're living through and what the assets are in our hands. And, the assets in our hands are fantastic in this part of the world, fantastic in this part of the world. So what to do? And I think there's a number of asks to be kind of made of local government and government. Just before I go into those, which will take you 1 minute, I want to kind of drive home this point about mission and purpose. Mission and purpose. Every single one of you looking at me, every single human being alive, is kind of trying to answer the question, what's the point of it all? And the answer Aristotle gave back in 370 BC in the School of Athens, the Aristotelian School of Athens, was, what gives a life meaning? Is it what makes you happy? And he asks rhetorically, and he said, is it kind of food in your stomach? Is it clothes on your back? Is it roof over your head? Is it love of a man or a woman? Is it your friends? Now, all of that matters to a degree, obviously. But the real thing, and I hope this resonates with all of you, we're all human beings after all, is that actually what Aristotle said was what makes a person happy is to use the gifts the gods have given you to act on the world in some way to make it incrementally better. And these founders of these companies kind of live that. They have a technology, they have an idea, they see an opportunity out there in society, and they're going to kind of meet that demand with the kind of toolkit, the business model, the technology they've developed. And they're going to make the world better. And they want to infuse the people who work with them with that spirit, with that sense of purpose. And we need to kind of lean into that, because the kind of capitalism that they're producing is dynamic. It's generating a lot of wealth. It's what we want to invest in. It will turn our country around. We can repopulate our ailing stock market with some fantastic companies. And to do that, we have to, start, and I was delighted that Rachel Reeves managed to persuade a number of people in the pension industry to commit to kind of allocating some of their monies, 10% of defined contribution funds, to private assets, of which kind of venture capital is going to be a big deal. And of course, the right-wing Times kicks off with a leader saying it's all a disgrace, and actually that's pension money going down the drain. Speaking as a pensioner, I'm delighted that part of my monies will be invested in kind of the companies of tomorrow. It'll mean there's jobs for my kids, and actually my pension will be likely to be better performing rather than worse performing. Kind of ailing pension funds delivering moderate returns and refusing to invest in our country are a problem, and they should be engaged with. We need to get the British Business Bank to do much more. It's doing well. We need to do much more. We need to think about public procurement. People need young startups and scale-ups, and what they need above anything else is orders. And we need the big companies, and government, and local government, speaking here, can play a part in that. Give them business. And by the way, you could take an equity warrant maybe in the little company as it scales, and actually you can benefit from its success. Some will fail, but a great many will succeed. And some will really do fantastically well and share in the kind of wealth that's been generated. And talk all the time about purpose and meaning, and the need actually not to treat your workforce as kind of atomized notations on a spreadsheet who can be disposed of as will, and actually someone else can train them. They're your people. They belong to you. They will commit to you if you commit to them. There's a reciprocal relationship here, a world of good work, engaged work. It's kind of fundamental to this entire story. And Britain can become an economic and social model that the whole of Europe can admire in the same way after John Churchill won the Wars of Spanish Succession, and the whole of Europe admired what Britain was doing back in the day. Thank you very much.
Laura.
Thanks very much. I really like the mission framing. One thing I've learned about going through several different types of careers, I was originally a particle physicist, then I went briefly into finance, quantitative finance, and then I ran a medtech startup for 10 years, and at that point I realised how important it is to have a mission. It's very difficult to get invested in making rich people richer. Scientifically very interesting, but does not get you out of bed in the morning. MedTech, we were trying to get better health and well-being outcomes for people who were very seriously disadvantaged in different ways, and that was really worth getting up for. And so 10 years later, my partner and I sold the company, just exactly as COVID hit, 2nd of March 2020, and we're suddenly chucked with our children for several months, and tried to figure out how to not panic about all of that, along with many other parents of very small children across the country. And after a few months, I thought, well, I probably should get a job. So after a few glasses of wine one evening, I saw this job advert, Director of Data Science in 10 Downing Street. And so, with the confidence of a couple of glasses of wine, I chucked a CV at it, forgot the whole thing, and was then very surprised to get this job. And I nearly didn't take it. I wasn't interested in politics. I wasn't totally sure how I'd handle working in a sort of building with a few people with Boris Johnson. It wasn't what I was looking to do with my life particularly. And then I thought, well, it'll be a story. So off I went through the black doors and sort of sat down in a room with the then principal private secretary, and he said, welcome. I tell this story a lot because it's very instructive about government. I said, thanks very much. And he said, I've got one piece of advice for you. So I said, oh, brilliant, what is it? And he said, you've got 6 months to have an impact. So I said, oh, right, what would you like me to do? And he said, oh, I don't know. And so I had a job with really no description around it. I knew I had to do something with data, and I could set my own mission, which was to make sure that policy making was evidence-based and try and get government to make better decisions. So I thought to myself, this is going to be great. We were already in a place where the Prime Minister's looking at a COVID dashboard every day. Really, the thinking behind hiring someone like me was to try and get data and evidence into all of the decisions, not just COVID. They'd seen the power of actually knowing what's going on. And they would like someone to come and help with that more generally. So I thought this is going to be great. There are these big decisions coming up in sort of education and health. That's what we're going to go and we're going to get the data, and we're going to build predictive models, and we're going to go in and we're going to show people the lovely, lovely data. Yay! And they're all going to be very pleased. They were not. No, policymakers don't like that sort of thing. A few of them were quite excited, but broadly we were not met with open doors. And I started to think about why I was doing it and how I was going to achieve making better decisions in government with evidence, and started to think about different kinds of data and different kinds of evidence and information that we have available to us. And having done this for several years, we got to a point where we went from everything coming in Excel spreadsheets to 8,000 live data feeds coming into Downing Street at the moment. There's a live dashboard that, as of the past 6 months or so, everybody in government can get their hands on at least parts of it and see what the government's delivering and what the priorities are and some of the policy modelling that goes into the decision making. And the way we went about that was actually much more around social research. And there's a lot in that. I could talk for ages, I won't. But I will tell you about one research study that I think is instructive here. It's called the Tetlock study. Does anyone recognise? Great. Yeah, this is going to change your lives. So in the 1980s, in 1985, Philip Tetlock went out and decided to do some research, as was his wont. And so he found himself 284 policy professionals, experts in policy. And he asked them all 100 questions. And the 100 questions were about predicting the future. So quite simple. This thing that's happening at the moment in this area of policy, in 20 years' time, will there be more of it, less of it? Will it be kind of the same as now? And so these professionals went through and they answered all the questions. And he waited patiently for 20 years. And then he went and compared the actual outcomes with the policymakers' predictions. And he wrote it up in a research paper, and Daniel Kahneman of Thinking Fast and Slow commented on it, and he said that the policymakers had done about as well as chimps throwing darts at a dartboard. Not well. They were slightly better than absolute random guesswork. They were much worse, actually, than what the paper called, rather grandly, the minimally sophisticated statistical model. And what that means is get a ruler and draw a line through it. They actually did slightly better in groups, and while you're thinking about your hiring, I'm going to segue slightly. More diverse groups of individuals make better decisions about 87% of the time. Don't hire just for the job, hire for the diverse team. Your company will benefit. So groups of people, slightly better, fantastic. But what was really striking is they were all very, very confident they were going to be right. It's really worth reading the study. There's a lot about it in which people are better and worse in forecasting. And that's very interesting because what it tells us is that people are horrible at predicting the future and they think they're really good at it. So what we've got is a bunch of policymakers that you're going in and they're saying, well, no, I'll tell you one other thing. The experts were worse in their own field of expertise than in things they knew nothing about. Even better. It wasn't statistically significant, but it was measurable. So what we've got actually in government, and in fact everywhere in the world of people doing almost anything, is we have people who believe that they are experts and therefore they know what they're doing, that their prediction of the future is right, and therefore their decision making is sound. Because decisions about predicting the future, if we implement this policy for education, children will do better. If I take this route, at this time, it will get me to where I want to be on time. No, we're horrible at it. And actually, one of the best things we can do is help ourselves. We can get that independent data, independent evidence, and AI is very good at getting that for us in particular ways. And we can get back up and we can push our decisions in a direction that has some evidence basis behind it, it's then more likely to be correct. So I had to find different ways to persuade people that believe that they're expert and therefore right, and were making the right decisions without any help, that they should think about things differently. And I could talk about that, but I'm not going to. But this future prediction is very, very interesting, and we see it over and over again. So my mission at that point in government was try and get the evidence into policy making. And after a while, I felt like that was going pretty well. We had a system, we had experts, we had, a really empowered team going off and informing all of the ministers. And of course, ChatGPT hit. And everything went nuts, really, didn't it? The first thing that happened in government was 6 people immediately declared themselves the new government head of AI. obviously. And then very quickly everybody started worrying a lot, and I was very worried about the sort of risk environment. I had a very frightening conversation with Jeff Hinton, and what were we going to do about that? We had the Safety Summit, we had the new Safety Institute, now the Security Institute, and then it started really striking me that one of the greatest threats that we were facing was just not adopting AI, and it becomes incredibly important to pick it up and make it work for you. And there's a few reasons. One of them is that, if you're running a bank and you don't want to be a victim of cybercrime, of hackers, one of the best things to do is go and find the best hackers you can and you bring them into your bank. They can find the holes, they can work for you. And I needed to find some of the best people in AI and have them work in government if we wanted to make sure that we as a country are going to be safe from the kinds of levels of crime and attack that you can come under with other people doing AI really well. The other risks are just that you're putting all this money into protecting yourself from threat and not getting the benefit. We can't keep running the National Health Service if we keep putting money into things that we can't afford. We have to find ways to make things more efficient so that we can put the money where we need it. So that's very important as well. So I went off and I ran this government incubator, ai.gov.uk. They've built many brilliant things. The code's open source. Businesses can pick it up and use it themselves. And we really wanted to build that trust with the public as well. But what's been very interesting as part of this journey is seeing the technological space our failure to predict the future. We didn't see ChatGPT coming. We were already using large language models, earlier ones. We're trying to use them to read all the NHS incident reports and figure out why for 1 in 10,000 babies in the UK, the mother dies still in childbirth. But we didn't see ChatGPT coming. We didn't see DeepSeek coming. And now I get asked all the time, what does the future look like? I don't know. I've absolutely no idea, as based in evidence, and you would be better off asking somebody who's not an AI specialist to predict the future of how AI is going to impact us going into the future. So in terms of the future of work, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, how will a technological transformation impact what we do next? I would have told you, gosh, well, I don't think people need to stack shelves anymore. I would have not said, artists, photographers, coders, data analysts will be the first people to see their livelihoods potentially severely impacted. So we really don't know what's coming next. But one thing I think I feel quite confident about is that we've got a choice ahead. And if you leave things to run their own course, my instinct is that what will happen is that technology will enable the rich people to get even richer and the poorer people to be more left behind, will increase health inequalities, will increase other sorts of inequalities, all of which, I think most of us would agree is not a good outcome. And the other thing it won't do is it will not make our lives easier and save time. I don't know how old you all are, but when I was at school, if you had to write a report, you'd have to wait till Saturday, go to the library, get one of the 2 remaining books that had a little bit in the encyclopedia on the thing, write it, and you had a week to do it. Now when I write a report for Tony Blair, I have an hour because you can do that. The advances in email have made my working days much longer. Everything that's happened in the tech space has made it harder to live as a human, in fact, because you're so much more efficient. So if what we want, and I know this is what I want, is a more balanced life where people have greater opportunities, where tech is used to get people the services they need and not to sell them things that they don't need, then what we have to do is do that consciously. It won't happen on its own. We don't really know what will happen if we just let it run. And for me, I really want to see businesses coalescing around actively taking that choice to say we are going to try to build things for the better good. We're trying to build the society that we want to live in. And the thing I'm going to do to contribute to that, we're building a massive digital public goods program, sort of based out of the Tony Blair Institute, where we will be trying to get a lot of open source code where all of the AI underpinnings are there, but they're accessible, they're equal, they're checked for bias, and that they are pro-social. So that's my sales pitch. Come and join us, contribute code, pick up code, build businesses that are pro-social.
Fabulous, thank you. Can I just put a couple of questions to both of you? And I want to pick up on this idea of purpose and purposeful business, because one of the things that I've experienced in working with startups who are pitching to investors is a very common comment back from the investors that they are startup entrepreneurs are very committed to an idea and a purpose, but it is not founded in data and it's not founded in commercial reality. And both of you have spoken very well about slightly idealistic views. We are in a commercial reality where investors, particularly angel investors, are looking for a reasonable return on their investment and confidence that those businesses will not disappear up an idealistic pipe hole. So how does that resonate with you? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, angel investing in Britain with the EIS and SEIS schemes, where, for every pound you invest, you get tax relief if you're a high-rate taxpayer of up to 45p in the pound, makes you kind of very generous in your assessment of people's capacity to navigate these challenges, Frank. I mean, I'm more concerned about what happens in the second, third, and fourth round, actually, where actually it gets much more serious.
Yeah.
The money involved is, when you're laying out. Some of the venture capitalists tell me that, putting 50,000 as an angel investor into XYZ startup, if you have, it's comparatively easy to do. What's really difficult is actually writing a check for 30, 40, 50 million when you really don't know. Look, what can I tell you? If you go on the pier at San Francisco and witness a kind of pitch morning, you just can't raise the money kind of in San Francisco down the road to Palo Alto unless in the second, third, or fourth kind of slide in your pitch deck you're talking about your mission and your purpose. Mm-hmm. And American investors insist on seeing it. And they insist on seeing it because it's very, very, anyone who's built a business, it's so hard. It's so hard to kind of, there's so many mistakes you can make. There's so many internal mistakes you can make in kind of not treating people right, not paying them right, screwing up in your HR, kind of all those things and problematic people who need to be got rid of quickly, and talented people who need to be looked after, spotting market opportunities. It's so difficult. And you need a compass. You need a kind of North Star by which you can reference, what are we up to? What's the meaning of this? What are we trying to do? And so in that sense, American tech investors are looking for the founder in front of them to present to them what the North Star is going to be in her or his business. Mm-hmm. And they also like to see, and by the way, all the evidence is, they also like to see people who've done it more than once. Mm. I mean, serial entrepreneurs are more likely to succeed than a standalone first time round. And they particularly like it when you can say in your pitch desk, I tried this and it failed, I tried this and it failed, but this was going to work because. And it's just a kind of, so, I mean, and I don't, we're getting near that in Britain, but we're not there yet. So, that would be my reply to you.
So, the seventh slide in the British pitch deck is the exit strategy.
Mm. Yeah. Well, what can I say? I just think we exit by acquisition far too easily, and we exit by acquisition overseas too easily. And actually, we need some exemplars of companies that are. That's why I'm so keen on Nanopore, although it's got all kinds of problems. A life science company, one of our unicorns based in Oxford. It's very important that it survives and doesn't get taken over by Mr. Ellison or Pfizer, whoever.
Nothing to do with me. No, I don't really buy the exit strategy thing. I think I see a lot of these sorts of pitches. I've obviously done startups myself. And you see two kinds of people in front of you. You see the ones who are very very mission driven, have a purpose, think this needs doing. And I've never built a team where that hasn't been the core of it. You know, those people want to come with you. I had an email from somebody when I left government and it said, I would follow you into battle. And that is what I'm trying to do. It's a fight. Come on, guys. So, you know, you have to have that passion, don't you? You know, you're trying to build something difficult. You've got to get up in the morning, you've got to care about it, you've got to put your house up against it sometimes. And the other types of people you see are the people who come in and say, well, you know, somebody else has given us 100 million. If you could just give us another 50 million, you know, we're raising all this money, we've had an idea. And I wouldn't go near them with a barge pole because they are doing it because they think it's going to get them rich, and that does not. That doesn't keep you going on the cold, dark nights, does it? So purpose is the point. Absolutely, I fully agree. Yeah. And it makes people happy. You know, the jobs I've had where I didn't have a purpose are the ones I've left.
Well, we started with a war, and we're ending with a warrior. Thank you both very much. That was a brilliant session. We really appreciate both your time and your insights, and I think there's a lot for us to go in and think about. Thank you so much.